Hello everyone, welcome to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I'm Lisa Curcio. I am so glad that you could join me for tonight's YouTube Live. Today is Thursday, November 1st. If you're here for the live presentation, I'm so glad that you've joined me. Welcome. If you're going to be back watching the replay, I am so glad that you've stopped by. If this is your first time, I'm so glad to have you here. I hope that I can inspire you. For those of you on the live chat, I want to introduce you to Megan. Megan is my YouTube live assistant, and you'll find a blue wrench next to her name. She helps with interaction, answering questions I may miss while I'm down at the stamp table, face down, stamping, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I am so glad that you're here because I am super excited about tonight's project. I'm sure you've had one of those. You create something and it's a mistake, and then all of a sudden you fall in love with it. And that's exactly kind of what happened with tonight's project. I'm going to give you tons of tips along the way to make it easy for you to replicate. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to flip the camera down. Just give me a couple seconds to get everything set up. So I'm going to zoom you in so you get a nice view. And I want to make sure you're nice and straight. And then I'm going to turn on another light. Gives you a little bit more light so you can see a little bit better. Let me move you in just a little bit more. Oops, sorry about that. That screen is sensitive. I'm going to be using a brand new suite of products that came out today. It is the Snowfall Showcase. You know what? It is a mouthful. I have to kind of just stop myself and just make sure that I pronounce that correctly, because boy, oh boy, I'm having a hard time with that name. Snowflake Showcase. There are 5 products in this suite, and they are all individual, so you can buy one or all, however you'd like. I'm going to show you some really cool things that you can do with this tonight, so make sure you hang with me to the end because I have alternate samples to share with you besides what I'm demonstrating. There is an incredible bundle of framelits that don't just make flowers, they also make snowflakes. And there's a stamp set that's for Christmas, as well as a stamp set that will be used outside of the holidays, so for all year round. There's also snowflake trinkets and beautiful velvet paper. So let me show you a close-up of some of these things so you can get a good appreciation for them. The Snow is Glistening stamp set is photopolymer, as well as the sister stamp set, which is something happiness. I completely just blew my mind and forgot. Oh my gosh. Megan will help me out. Thanks, Megan. Snowfall Thinlits dies. Now I want to show you how big these are. We're going to use this on the project right now. So there's several sheets here of dies, and we're going to use this big one. But here's the beauty. Do you guys see these? You can see here that these look very much like flowers, and there's a lot of uses for these besides just snowflakes. So I'm going to share you some other ideas with you here towards the end. So I'm just going to set those aside for right now, and I'm going to pull out this large snowflake that we're going to be using this evening. I'm going to start with a piece of that beautiful white velvet paper. I wish you could feel this. I really do. The great thing about this velvet paper is it's not just like the velvet you might think on fabric. It's a little bit more of a matte finish. I'm pulling out a piece of scratch paper, so if you hear a little background noise, that's why. It's got a little bit of a matte finish to it, which is going to make it perfect for die cutting and something else. And let me show you what I'm going to do with that tonight. I'm going to lay that piece of velvet paper here, and I'm going to be using a sponge dauber tonight. I actually have one dedicated to each color, so I'm going to be using a little bit of Blushing Bride, and this is going to be completely out of your traditional color zone. Please keep in mind that you can change this up to however you like, so you can change the color of your velvet. Now, let me give you some tips. The sponge daubers are wonderful to use because you can put your finger right up inside, and it's going to allow you control. I go ahead and I'm going to ink this up on my ink pad, but because it's pretty concentrated because of the sponge finish, I like to tap a little bit off here so that I can kind of get an idea of how much I want. I don't want it too strong in some areas and too light in others. I'm going to show you the completed card at the very end, obviously, but I want you to know I want you to color this while it's a square. Lots of reasons. It's going to be a lot easier for you to die cut. It's also going to give you a little bit more definition. Do you see how I'm kind of just doing some messy sponging here? There's no rhyme or reason. This is something you can even have the kids do. You can obviously have them help you crank big shots and die cutting machines to get all your images out. Anywhere you want more color, just go ahead and place it. So I'm using that sponge dauber just to lay the color down. There is no right or wrong to this. So you can add as much or as little as you want. And that's just where I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to close this up and I'm going to place this off to the side. And I'm going to push that over here. Here comes that die. We're going to do some die cutting. Let me move this out of the way because I want to bring my Big Shot in. And I am a big fan of the magnetic platform when I'm using my metal dies. You see this? It helps to hold them in place. It is not required. You do not have to have it. The regular multi-purpose platform with either tab 2 or of course the thin die adapter, depending on what series of the Big Shot that you have, are all going to work fine. And this is a big treat tonight because look at this. These are almost like brand new clear plates. That like never happens. So I've got my velvet paper here and I've got my die here. I'm going to lay that right on top. I am going to put another clear mat over the top to protect that die, and I'm going to run this through my Big Shot just by cranking. Now let me tell you a couple things about the Big Shot. There are rollers underneath here that compress the die to cut it. This Big Shot in my stamp room has had thousands, I mean literally thousands of uses, and I know how it cuts because it's kind of like your kitchen sink. You know how it drips if the handle's one way. I know I've got to crank it back through at least one more time. Yours is going to be different. If your Big Shot is newer than mine, you may not need to pass it through twice. You may need to pass it through just once, but I want to give you a really important tip about detailed dies. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lift this, and I'm going to look from the back, and it looks to me as if it is die cut all the way through. Take a look at it. You should be able to see the cut lines, especially in the center. If you have any doubt whatsoever, take it, slightly turn it in a different direction, and then run it back through one more time. But I'll tell you what, there is absolutely nothing worse than going to take it all apart and you find out it didn't die cut all the way through. Is anybody with me? I cannot be the only person that that's happened to. Honest to goodness. All right, so let me just move this out of the way. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I'm going to take this apart. You're going to see how this is going to come right off. Don't throw this away. I'm going to show you what to do with it. I've got another project for you. So I'm going to stick that off to the side. And then you can see that it's embedded in the die. Now let me give you a couple tips about this. If you have the Big Shot die brush, that is a fabulous thing. You can lay that right in there on the foam mat and roll over it. These areas that are exposed are actually the negatives, so you don't have to worry about marring the velvet paper. I love my take your pick pickup tool. So I'm going to take the plastic tip off. That's just to store it. And that's going to leave me here with my paper piercing tool. And for those of you that haven't seen this amazing tool yet, it has a lock and unlock mechanism here, which allows you to turn this and then interchange these. There's a little spatula here that's also great for applying pastes or to help get up underneath those dimensionals if you've got an oops. There's also another attachment that's a double-ended stylus tool. Now on this end, you have a nice putty tip that's going to help you pick up real small pieces of cardstock as well as sequins. I absolutely love this. $10, you cannot beat it. You get all of this, plus you get a refill for this that just unscrews, and the new one can go on when you've used all this up. So you can actually just twist this and extend more fresh putty. I am totally in love with this tool. So since we know these are negative areas, there's no reason why you can't start poking. All right, and here's a great indication that your die is punched all the way through. I'm going to come up here where these little tiny holes are, and I'm just going to start to release the die. I know some of you are thinking, uh-oh, she's marring the velvet. I promise you, I am not. I have made oodles of these. So I'm going to come up underneath here. Did you see how I didn't even have to poke it very much? Look at that. So here's the piece of the die. You can go ahead and take your Big Shot die brush over that, or of course you can poke if you had a bad day and need a little stress reliever. But you can see that the pieces are all die cut. They're going to come out. Because it's velvet, I prefer to do now the poking even from the back because I find, especially since I've colored it, it's going to be easier for me to see where those pieces are. Now, I didn't want to bore you. I'm going to be honest with you. It's kind of like watching glue dry. So I have one that I did just ahead of you joining me that's already poked. Okay, but I think you get the idea on how this is going to work. This is going to give me another card to finish when we're all done here live tonight. So let me clear that out of the way and bring in my grid paper one more time because we're going to do some stamping now. That's the best part. And I'm going to grab some other pieces here. And this is a beautiful piece of shimmery white cardstock. I know there is absolutely no way for you to appreciate this in the video, but I'm trying to hold it to see if you can get a little bit of that glimmer. Shimmery white cardstock in the catalog is an amazing product for two reasons. Not only does it have that gorgeous shimmer that we all love, but the other thing is, did you know that it's an awesome cardstock to stamp and watercolor on? This paper is really resistant to the water, which makes it a perfect watercolor surface. So if you haven't tried it, I'm going to encourage you to give that a try. I'm going to move a couple things just out of the way because I have to bring in another tool that we're going to be using. And I want to prep my surface first. So I'm going to be using some Versamark, and we're going to be doing a little bit of heat embossing here. So let me grab my next set of little gadgets here, and I've got my embossing buddy. Whenever I'm going to do some heat embossing, especially if I know it's going to be detailed, in this case it's going to be a greeting, I prefer to prep that surface. There's an anti-static powder in the embossing buddy that will tell the powder, the embossing powder, not to stick where there is an ink. Now you're probably thinking, really? It works like a charm, I promise you. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Versamark ink. It's kind of an invisible ink, and for those of you that are not familiar with it, it's a watermark ink pad. So what's going to do, it's not going to be visible to you, but once we add some powder to it, it's going to be good to go. So I'm going to bring out my tray here with my embossing powder in it, and I like to use a coffee filter so that I can pour the excess back in the bottle when I'm done, so there's no waste. I'm getting that all ready. And I'm going to ink up the greeting. That's all part of the Snow is Glistening stamp set that I just showed you. And I'm going to stamp that down here near the bottom. And I want to make sure that I get this as close and as straight as possible. But my head's kind of far away, so let's see how we do. All right, so I know you can't see it. So let me cover this up because I don't want to get powder in there. And so we're going to come over here and we are going to powder that. Yes, very generously. Back in the coffee filter, because then I'm going to pinch that and put that right back into the container. So I'm going to put that off to the side, so we don't want that blowing all over. And now I'm going to bring in the heat tool. The Stampin' Up! Heat tool has two speeds. There's a 1 and a 2. The 1 is a lower heat speed, which is great for drying cardstock if you've put a lot of if you put a lot of ink on your paper. 2 is for heat setting. Now I do have my external mic on, so I'm hoping that you can hear me. My greeting is not perfectly straight, but you guys are going to give me a little forgiveness, right? Once the gun gets hot, it's going to retain its heat. You see how the nozzle is encased? Which is going to make repeated cards quick and easy. The gun is very, very hot, so this is not something you're going to want to let the kids do. You're going to definitely want to do this yourself. I concentrate on one area, and do you see how it's turning like a silver foil? Now I know I can move over. Oftentimes people heat emboss like this, and it's difficult for them to see where they've started and where they've stopped. And then, of course, if it's not all heat set, what happens is that the powder will literally rub off. So I can see right down here that I have powder that's not set. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to turn that, keep my fingers out of the way, and just come back over that. All right, you don't want to overheat set it either. Believe it or not, you can actually scorch this, and that'll make this actually look embedded in the paper and instead of foily and raised, which is just beautiful for Christmas. And I'm giving this a quick look, thinking to myself, is it dry? Maybe not. You know what? I was just being so careful with my fingers that I might not have gotten close enough. Let me just go back over that. There we go. I like the way that looks a little bit better. Let me turn that off. All right, the next thing we're going to do, I promised I'd show you how to do this. Coffee filters. They're getting harder and harder to find, aren't they, with Keurig machines now? But I was able to find them at the dollar store. So I'm going to pinch this, and then I'm going to pour that right back inside the bottle. And you're going to find that there's very little to no waste. And then always make sure your powder is stored nice and tight. If you're like me and you have a lot of embossing powders in your stamp room, a tip I want to give you is, once it's sealed, turn it upside down and store them in your drawer or in your caddy this way so you can easily tell what color powders that you have. And the great thing about this, it's just trash. I want to share another tip with you. If you're doing a lot of heat embossing like I do around the holidays, you're going to find, because obviously we're heat setting it with the heat tool and it's blowing, you might find that you have this light grainy fleck powder all over. And I don't know about you, but it's really frustrating because it ends up getting stuck to my adhesive, my clear blocks, and it can end up even worse yet in your ink pads. Go ahead and take a Swiffer. I've actually cut one in half. These are great pickups. And I just go over my work surface just like this, and it'll pick up all those stray powders. This is also fabulous for glitter in your stamp room as well. So here we go. We've got our image here. Let's go ahead and do some mounting. I've cut a piece of silver foil, and I know that's probably kind of blinding in the video, so I'm going to move it a little bit out of to the side, and I'm going to add adhesive to the back. You're going to notice that I'm going to be rather generous than I am normally. Not because it's not strong enough, because the snail adhesive certainly is, but because I've heat set this paper, it's a tendency to have a little bit of a warp to it, which is completely normal. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave a border on either side of this cardstock. I'm looking to center it the very best that I can. And then I'll press that in place. And I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to rub from the back just to make sure it's good and stuck. I tend to have ink all over my hands here, so I find rubbing from the back is going to ensure that I don't have that problem. Now I've got a couple other pieces here. And I'm going to start by adhering this one to the card base. And this is Blushing Bride. That's the same color ink that we've used. The beauty of Stampin' Up! Products is the simple fact that everything is color coordinated. So there's no guesswork. You don't have to worry about matching. My bone folder is one of my best friends. I absolutely love that for that nice crisp edge on my card. And I'm going to mount this here in the center. So I've got another border on either side. So I'll flip this over. And I'm going to add a little bit more adhesive here. I don't have to be quite as generous. I'm just kind of leaving a little bit of dashes of it all the way around. And then I'm going to center that right here on the card base. Again, leaving that border a little bit on either side. And again, I'm going to rub from the back. It's just a habit I've gotten into over the many years of stamping because I've ruined many cards. All right, the next thing let's talk about is this beautiful snowflake. Just ahead of you joining me, I die cut another one from the silver foil. You've already seen me die cut. This is from the exact same package of the Snowfall Thinlits that we just used for this one. It's very abundant, but I've got a couple here that I'm going to put together, and I've got tips for you about this. But I want to add a little bit of ribbon to this. So I've cut this beautiful silver edged foil ribbon. Oh, I'm loving this. It has a satin finish down the center. The silver on both sides is prominent from either direction. So you don't have to worry about this being tied and it's being wrong on one side. I'm going to do a little bit of a zigzag pattern, and you can see we've got plenty of room here outside of this circumference. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to kind of weave this back and forth. I'm kind of like in a Z formation. I'm sure you've seen this on a lot of cards lately. It's really popular. I have tried glue dots to my frustration because you need a bunch of them to hold all this down. So let me give you another really great tip, and it is just regular household Scotch tape. Now I want to make sure that my piece is not too long because I don't want it to peek through the opening of my snowflakes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tack that down here just to hold that. I'll give those ends a little bit of a trim here at the end. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on putting these together. Now you may be thinking, well, how is adhesive going to stick to that? Well, bottom line is it really doesn't stick well. So here's a tip for you. I want you to grab your paper piercing mat. This piercing mat is wonderful. It works great with your piercing tool, which is right here that I just used to do the poking. That's on my pickup tool. So I'm going to lay out my snowflake here, and I've got my silver snowflake. And do you see how beautifully these dies were designed to nest inside of each other? Oh, just gotta love that. I'm going to be using one of the metallic brads, and I wanted to show these to you because, gosh, these are just amazing. You have gold, silver, and copper, and you have varying sizes. And there's even one in here. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this or not, but I want to kind of show you. It's got faux buttonholes on it. So you've got a little bit of a farmhouse vintagey look for some of these. You cannot beat these. So just ahead of you joining me again, I pulled out just one of the smaller silver ones. And of course, any of the sizes are going to work really well. And I'm going to pierce this so I don't have to monkey with adhesive, all right? So I'm going to line these up where I want them, and then I'm going to grab my piercing tool, and I'm going to poke a hole. But here's the tip. Leave the piercing tool in the mat while you pick up your brad and you have your eye on the prize, because I will tell you, you will poke the hole, you'll pull this out, you'll look away, and this will slightly shift, and you will have the worst time getting this inside that hole. But I'm using my pierce mat to my advantage. I have literally pierced that right through the mat because I know it's going to all stay in place and intact. And then I'm very carefully going to lift this out of the pierce mat, and I'm going to flip that over, and I'm going to open up these prongs to the back. And I'm just going to make sure they're as flat as possible. Working on the pierce mat when you open your brads is another great tip because it's going to keep them parallel and as flat as they can get. Now I can use regular dimensionals, but I've opted for the mini dimensionals on this because I find that they fit in these areas better. So I'm going to use that piercing tool again because they're small, and I'm going to work inside of this area here. You don't have to probably cover every single one, but I'm one of those stampers that I know I'm going to be mailing this Christmas card, and I want to make sure that as it goes through the rollers at the post office when it's being metered, that it's not going to come out distorted from the other end. I want to make sure that it's still balanced like I sent it. And then what you can do is go here and just take off those paper backings. It's relatively easy. If you have trouble, that paper piercing tool is another great way to get those off. I keep my fingernails relatively short, so sometimes that's a bit challenging for me. Now here we go. Here is the base of that card that we were just working on. And I am going to center that snowflake right here, right smack dab in the center. And then what you can do, if these ends are a little bit too long for your liking, especially because I know they're going to have to go in an envelope, I'm going to give that a little bit of a cut on this side. And I kind of like that one longer, so I'm going to leave it that way. But look at this. Is this not absolutely stunning and so simple? There were just a few steps. The dies are fabulous for that, and that silver embossing really leads credence to that brad and that ribbon as well as all that foil. Now, do you remember this extra piece that we just die cut a few minutes ago that we had the negative for? Well, I saw this and I just didn't have the heart to throw it away. I'm like, okay, we've got to be able to do something with this, right? So let me show you what I did with this. So I'm going to stick that off to the side. Here's the one we just made, and I came up with this. These are the exact same dies I just used. I'm picking them up so you guys can see them. So here they are. Do you see the piece here? That solid piece from the flower is this one. And then this die is this one here. Look how beautiful these open filigree cuts are. And those brads that you see here are been used in the exact same way that I did them here. But this is just called the basic brads assortment. And there's a numerous amount of different colors in here, so it gives you a lot of variation. And I just brought in a little bit of that lighter green just to add a little bit of spark to that card, give it a little bit of character. But you know what? Don't throw these away. This is just a great way for you to be able to make a whole nother card out of it. Christmas is a great time for you to take your handmade greeting cards and package them together in either a box or a cellophane bag, put a ribbon on it, and bring them as hostess gifts. I also have other samples for you. So let me push these up off to the side. I am loving this limited edition suite of products. Now I want to remind you about one more thing about this. This Snowflake Showcase is only available from November 1st to November 30th or while supplies last. And I've got a sneaky feeling that some, if not all of these things, could seriously get sold out. Now, another thing I'm going to be offering my customers is this, and I'm going to talk to you about that in just a second. You may have caught my video on Monday. Did you guys see this card? If you didn't, I'm giving you a look at it now. This is all done with embossing. All I did was score, I'm hoping you guys can see that, the lines that are in here, white on white, very crisp and clean, snowy for Christmas. This is that gorgeous velvet paper. So I've showed you how to color it. These two other cards, are you ready? They're sneak peeks of videos that are coming up. This one's coming up real soon. Look at that beauty. Again, velvet snowflakes and that amazing Snow is Glistening stamp set. And then there is this one. You want to talk about simple and very farmhouse country? That is this one. Same snowflake, vanilla paper, beautiful designer paper, simple button, and some twine. So those two are videos that are coming up. This one I just shared this week. And of course, the two projects. Let me talk to you about this. Anyone who chooses to place a $25 product order from the Snowflake Showcase while the products are still available, which means November, unless they sell out sooner, I'm going to send you, ready, 9 tutorials that include alternate project ideas I have not shared anywhere else. These tutorials are actually a bundled special between a Canadian demonstrator by the name of Allison Sullivan. She's at stampcrazywithallison.com, and myself. You will not find these shared in other places. So these projects are going to be given to people who place a $25 product order with me including any of these items. So as long as it's $25, if you want just the velvet paper and something else, that's fine. But keep in mind that you have to have $25 from this bundle to get the tutorials. I do have a host code. You'll be able to find that over on my blog under the menu tab. It says current host code. Just click on that. It pops right up on the screen for you there, and you'll be able to add that to your order, and I'll be happy to send you the tutorial absolutely free. There is no cost for this. This is just my thank you. The other great thing, and let me turn you around. It's a lot better than watching talking hands. The other great thing is that with a $25 product order, you're also going to receive additional rewards with Lisa's Stamp Studio. I invite you to a private Facebook event called Live with Lisa, and there I provide numerous live demonstrations, an additional bundle of tutorials, there are 8, and I do product prize giveaways there, just random. It's lots of fun, it's a smaller group, it's very personal and interactive, and I would love to include you. So with the $25 product order, you would get Live with Lisa. If your $25 product order actually happens to include $25 of product from the Snowflake Showcase, I will also include the 9 tutorials that I just spoke to you about for the Snowflake Showcase bundle. That's a mouthful, isn't it? But I wanted to make sure I got those details in. Really a beautiful card, and I'm telling you what, you can do so much with this velvet paper. Another thing I want to give you a tip on about this before we go is I want to make sure that you understand, try spritzing it. Try different colors as well. Blue and blush are also beautiful for snowflakes, but don't be afraid to try other colors. If you like green and you like red still for Christmas because you like the traditional aspect, go for it. Now, a couple things I wanted to let you know about. I'm going to be live again Thursday, December 6th. I know that seems like a long time from now, but next week, I'm going to be heading to Stampin' Up's annual convention. It's called On Stage, and it's in Orlando. So I'm super excited to see the upcoming products that are going to be heading your way for January in the Occasions catalog, as well as the Celebration catalog. And if you don't already have a demonstrator and you're interested in receiving a copy of the current Christmas catalog or the holiday catalog and or the annual catalog, I would be more than happy to send those to you. All you have to do is leave me a comment below and I'll get a hold of you by replying to get your address and mail those out to you. They're completely complimentary. The other thing is I want to share with you now that in January, we're going to be starting Stampin' Up's largest sale of the year at Celebration. And those are part of the things that we're going to be learning at the Stampin' Up convention. That's next week. And then I'll be back for a very short time before we go to a family reunion over Thanksgiving. That's why there's such a long break between I'll be live with you again in December. But you're not going to want to miss that project because it's really fun and it's really different. And I've got a color palette I don't think you would have put together. In addition to that, if there's any other questions you have about products, I would be more than happy to answer them for you. You'll find a link down in this video description below. Once we're done live, it gives us a few minutes to kind of get on here and get those links all put in for you, so please be patient. This card and the alternate are going to be part of my blog post on Monday. You'll find the link to that post in the video description below once we're done uploading here. That'll navigate you to the pictures. The pictures, the cutting dimensions, and supplies that I used. And of course, there's a lot of talk about, of course, the free tutorial and the Snow is Glistening Showcase products. I'm so glad that you guys have joined me, and I hope that this has inspired you to consider these products. They are amazing. And again, only available in November or while supplies last. Make sure you share tonight's video if you've enjoyed the tips with your other crafting friends. I would encourage you to head over to my blog at lisasstampstudio.com, subscribe to my blog, as well as scroll down and stay in the know and subscribe to my free weekly e-newsletter. There I provide a tutorial that I don't share on any other platform of mine, and I would love to send it to you every week for free. In addition to that, I would love to read more of your comments, so leave me comments below. I do read every single one, and I do reply to them. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss what's coming up. And I hope you guys all have a great weekend, and I'll be back with you soon. Bye-bye.